so busy, looking at the emails, answering the phones, doing the day-to-day things that people forget. Like, you have to work on the business, not always in the business.
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today.
Hello, and welcome to the Money and You show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. So happy you're here. We have a fantastic show today. We're going to really dig in to profitability in your business. If you are a business owner, we're going to be talking to an expert who has helped beauty businesses, salon owners, and people in that industry to excel. And we're going to bring her in just a moment. But you can apply this to many businesses. So this will be a great show for anyone who is really focused on getting some profits out of all the hard work that you're doing. So I'm going to introduce Karen Pudetti. Karen is a mom first to her two daughters. She graduated with her accounting degree and worked for CPA firms and Fortune 500 companies. Prior to starting her own business in the beauty industry, she bought a 16,000 square foot building, which is home to Luxe Salon, Spa, and Laser Center. With her financial background and the success she's had with Luxe, she started consulting with salons and spas across the United States. Karen is an expert at taking unprofitable businesses and turning them around to be very profitable. Her consulting includes business plans, programs, and systems to take your company to the next level. As a coach, her goals are to inspire people to become a savvy business owner and empowering leader. She would guide clients to personal and professional success, and as a result, you see your life profits grow, your potential reached. This year, she launched a clothing line called Badass. Badass was created to showcase that everyone can be their own badass. Karen has two beautiful daughters, one enrolled in college and one in middle school who has ADHD. Her youngest daughter has dreams of becoming a veterinarian. With that said, people with ADHD have difficulties focusing, typically have behavioral problems, and often can't sit still for too long. Badass was brought to life to show her daughters that women can do anything they put their minds to. Her goal for Badass is for women to dream big, swing big, and live big. The proceeds will go toward a foundation to provide funding for non-conventional schooling, such as cosmetology, vet technician, or even LPN. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Excited. I'm good. And I put my mind to not coughing during that bio. I started tearing up, but I did it. So I'm going to have a drink of water here. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really very pleased to talk to you. We spoke briefly, and you just are a wealth of knowledge. So do you want to give us some background on how you got to this place where you're doing this?
Yes. So when I was younger, I think when I was born, my parents were like, you're going to college, you're going to college. So I grew up with that mindset. I was going to college. And at one point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think at around the age of 19, I kind of knew in my heart of hearts, someday I'd want to own my own business. Mm-hmm. So my dad was the one that says, well, if you go into accounting, it's the backbone to any business. So he says that would be a great place to really start. And I thought, oh, that's true. And I was always interested in money and how to make more money, even as a little kid. So that's what made me go into accounting. And then, I worked in the CPA firms and I went to the big companies and did that. And it came down to like one day, I'm like, this is not exciting me. I don't have passion to come here and, do somebody else's accounting. I felt like I was missing something. And I remember when I was small, my mom used to teach modeling. So my sisters and I got to go with her to work, and it was a big production day. They were doing commercials, runway work. And my sisters and I were young, and we each got to have our makeup done, our hair done. And I remember I was like 8 or 9. And I remember walking in, a young little kid. And I remember when I was all done thinking, oh my God, I actually look pretty. And it was just I remember the way I felt inside. And I remember thinking, I could do anything I want. I just felt so powerful and so mature and ready to go. So as I back, as I got older and I was like, what do I really want to do? I kept going back to that feeling. And I really wanted to make people, particularly women, feel good, look good, be their best that they could be. And so then I went back to school and I got my electrolysis license, my aesthetics license, waxing, then my laser certification. So and I knew that I wanted to be a bigger salon spa. So that's kind of how it all progressed.
Wow, I love that. And I love that you started with the accounting degree. It is the foundation for so many things. And I do think it's a great background to have. And if you don't know what you want to do, that was good advice. So
yes, it was probably the best advice he could have given me because it's helped me throughout everything in life, really.
Yeah. That's great. So so you built this career in this company in the industry that you loved. And at some point, obviously, you started consulting other beauty salon owners. What brought that to be?
Well, I just want to back up a little. So when I first started my business, I was in my home because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom.
Got it.
So I had someone come and watch my daughter, and I worked 2.5 days, and I really built up a clientele that I was making, 6 figures working out of my home 2.5 days a week. And then I decided okay, my home is my home. This is getting way too big. So I bought a business that was just a little spa. And inevitably it ended up it was like 30 days from being bankrupt. So I immediately had to turn that around. And then we did. And then I put on a salon and then a laser center. So I felt like I had done a lot of different things. And one of my personal long-term goals was always to buy a building. I wanted to be able to have a building and have the asset and not always just throwing money out the door for rent. So then about 12 years ago, my husband and I bought the building together. And we bought a 16,000 square foot building, and 9,000 of it is my salon, spa, and laser center. And we rent out the other for, rentable space. So that was a great idea. And it seemed like everything was running really well and I just felt like I wanted to do more. And I always liked the consulting part. I figured I've done enough things, some great decisions, some terrible decisions. And I really wanted to help other people. And so then I got involved with Empowering You and became a consultant. And I loved going into a business and, just kind of diving and finding about who they are, what they're all about, where their starting point is. And each business, of course, is extremely different. There were some businesses I'd say, any idea of your expenses? And they say, oh, yeah, here. And they give me a shoebox. I'm like, what's the shoebox for? And they go, those are all my expenses. I'm like, oh, dear. To some people kind of having it written down, to some people actually having it on like a QuickBooks. But each business was different, a different challenge. And I just love working with them when they got to a point, like, first of all, they're profitable because in the beauty industry, 1.7% of all salons and spas hit the $1 million mark, only 1.7. 20% of the salons and spas close within the first couple of years. And we are behind restaurants as the second business to always close. And then when the pandemic hit, it really crushed our business. 33% of all salons and spas closed because they never have the financial structure to really move forward and run a proper business. Mm-hmm. So when I went in and was helping people and putting procedures in place, and that you could see them like all of a sudden now if they weren't making any money, they're making money or they're making more money, and you could see them they're changing their life to be able to do more, see more, and just be more. And I love that, like the people I was helping, you could just see a huge difference, and they were just loving life a lot more.
Mm. Yeah, it's such a struggle when you're working hard, you're doing what you love, you're talented at it, and you're not making money or you're losing money, and having to spend so much time worrying about whether the business is going to make it, from month to month. So that's a terrible place to be. So I think what you do is amazing. And we talked about this, it's not just beauty shop owners, it's anybody who's trained in an expertise who doesn't get any business training, which is most people. I mean,
Absolutely.
beauty salon owners. I mean, it's everybody, lawyers, you name it. There is this business, this entrepreneurial part of it that is kind of overlooked, but it's what is going to make or break you, really.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. And that's the biggest problem is they have their expertise. They're phenomenal at it. But then you say, okay, now let's, run it like a business. And then all of a sudden, that's where all the problems arise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you find that most people feel like, well, when I get enough customers, profits are going to be like a natural outgrowth of that. That's just going to happen for me if I market well enough and I bring in enough people.
Yes, there are some people who think like that. And then I have had some big names in the industry where they were like, they're booked and they have a waiting list and they're bringing in all this money. But again, the business isn't set up to run profitably. And so they're working their butt off and they're still they're in the red. They're not making any profit. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix of they need more clients, but some people they're so established, but they are still not making a profit.
Yeah. Okay. Can you give us some insight into why?
Oh, sure. Yes. In particularly in the beauty industry, it's a funny little industry because for two reasons. First of all, people see a lot of money coming in. Checks, credit cards, cash. So you see money all day coming in, coming in, coming out. So people see that, but then there's money always going out. And a lot of people don't account for all the money coming in and they don't account for all the money going out. So there's a huge discrepancy. They always say, oh, they're making money. They're making money. That's the first thing. The second thing is in our industry that whatever comes in, 50% of whatever money comes in is usually going towards somebody's commission, salary, and stuff like that. So it's right at the top. You're losing 53%. And now you've still got to pay your rent, your electric bills and phone bills and everything else, never mind that your back bar supplies and everything like that. So you really need to have controls and procedures in place to make sure you're profitable. Because if you don't, forget it.
Yeah. So are you saying that people are not looking at the right things? They're seeing, and I see this with doctors and dentists, is sort of this process where you see these production reports every day at the end of the day. So they're feeling really good. They're walking out looking at all the money that came in. But somebody in the back is worrying about the expenses. They don't even, that's not even registering with them. So
yeah, absolutely. So that's the problem. They see it all coming in. And a lot of people don't worry about, and even the smaller expenses that add up. I've worked with clients and they say, oh, if it's under $1,000, we don't worry about it. I'm like, why? And so they had $25,000 of $1,000 or less that they weren't worrying about. I'm like, that could be your profit, right? Yeah. And so, a lot of people think if it's small money, that doesn't matter. And so I tell every one of my clients, you need to account for every penny coming in and every single penny going out. And then look at and see, of like what percentage is your payroll? What percentage is your back bar cost? I know like my staff, and I've seen it before in a lot of other companies, I want the $6,000 massage chair that all but does, cleans your house. Yeah, I'd like that too, but that doesn't mean we can afford it, right. Right. And I think people don't make their, they think they buy what they want, not basically based on their P&L and their financials. And so, I always go in and say, well, you don't make any decisions unless it can fit into our P&L and we can afford it. If not, it's a no for now. And I think that's a big thing.
That's a big thing. I'm so glad you brought that up. And I want to dig into that a little bit deeper because there's so much rationalizing. And I understand it. Investing in that chair is going to, draw all kinds of people in because we're the only ones with the chair. So then how do you navigate that? Because there's some truth to, investing in things and attracting in more. But when you say, look at your P&L, what specifically are we looking at and when can we buy that chair?
So what I usually do, for instance, I just bought a new laser and lasers are about $100,000. So my staff kept saying, well, can we get a new laser like 5 years ago? And I said, okay, I'll buy a new laser when every month we hit this target amount of sales. And if we do that consistently, and that means everybody's working on it, everybody's trying to promote it, and then I will go ahead and buy it. And then, I'll buy it and then give it to the company and kind of company will buy it from me. Mm-hmm. And so we put up a whole string of things that need to happen. And so like my staff buys into that and we break it down so they know they're going to get it. But this is what has to happen. Same thing with my massage department. They want another bed and they are like $7,000. I said, okay. And this is for the massages side by side, a couples massage. And I said, okay, we need to do so many couples massage a month. And when we hit that goal and stay consistent, I will definitely buy another bed. So I don't say no, but I make sure that we can financially afford it. I let them know, they buy into it, and then we all work together to get it.
So those are investments where that consistent revenue is going to pay for it.
Yes.
What about the things that you really do need that maybe you don't have the revenue for, but you almost can't do without? How do you? That
comes like to basically in your startup. You're going to put money in at first, but now, for instance, like, based on our like retail sales, whatever we sell this week, we get to put 50% into buying it for next week. And same with our back bar sales. So we look at our sales number and that will help us project exactly what we can spend the next week. Now, if we open up a new line, like for instance, if we buy a new product line or something new, yes, we have to put the cost out there, but I am financially comfortable that that's not a problem and it's not going to be imposition to us in any way. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's great. And, I'd love to dig in a little bit to the money mindset that you're seeing out there, these owners' relationship with money, because we do talk about that a lot on this show. So what do you see? I mean, I know you see everything, so it's kind of a lame question, but, some of the highlights of what you're seeing in terms of how people view money, how they interact with it.
It is funny because there's a pretty large spectrum. So, and when I first started out consulting, I didn't really get that people's mindsets literally could get in their way and actually stop them from being profitable.
Yeah.
So when I go in, I'll have a conversation with the owners and like top managers, and I'll sit down and I don't say we need to have a conversation, but it's just kind of, pretty organic. When you were brought up, what were your beliefs around money, and you kind of get to see where they're coming from. Like, for instance, I had a couple that both the husband and wife were taught to work hard, really hard, long hours. And I'm like, that's great. But it wasn't, but they didn't realize you could work hard, but smarter. And then the other thing was that their parents kind of both had taught them, when you get so much money, you just give it away to charity, to, your sisters who need it, the aunt who might be sick. You just help everybody around you. To the point, they were kind of getting in financial trouble. So they didn't have like a 3-year or a 3-month reserve. They didn't have like a long time financial plan. So you really have to kind of say, and they would always get to this one mark. They'd be like 80% there to their goal. As soon as they hit it, they would start giving stuff away, or Aunt Millie got a hip replacement or something. So we had to set up things where they would put their money in a 3-month, like their backup plan, their long-term plan. So they were still doing stuff with it, so they couldn't touch it, but it was going for, if there was another pandemic or something of that nature. So there was a lot of things. Another thing is when people start out, particularly, they want to do everything, top of the line, first class, flashy. The glass door that costs $20,000 to walk into someplace. And when they do that, they don't sit down and think how long it will take for the bills to get paid off. So diving in deep to know where they are, and then you can't say they're wrong, but how are you going to take them where they are and then help them set up for their future as well? So that was one of them, was people would give money away. The other one that you'd see a lot is the owner would have 1 or 2 people that would kind of need rent money because they used up all their money, or their electric was going to be shut off, yet they're getting like a tattoo and going to concerts or whatever they were doing. So, setting boundaries. So a lot of times we'll go in and we'll ask, and you kind of determine what each trigger or what each person has, and then how are we going to cope with that and how we're going to deal with that to set them up for financial freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. And how much of a transformation do you find this is for them? Does it take them a while to kind of accept this and implement some new things? I mean, it's not a just you say it and they're like, oh, sure, I'll do that, because it's a deep rooted.
It is very deep rooted. And some people, when you go in, you start the conversation, they already know like where they struggle. And so when they know that's where they struggle, they're more open to talk about it and to come up with a plan. And the plan has to go slow. You can't say, okay, you can't give anybody another $1 because, that's not going to happen. But the people that had no idea that they were self-sabotaging themselves, those are the people that you generally would have to, and at times it's a big struggle for them, a huge struggle. And sometimes they have to set boundaries up with, whether it be their family or the employees or somebody, like, you can't come to me anymore and ask. You just can't do that.
Yeah, so, those conversations are very difficult.
Yeah, but once they start taking tiny steps and they see that they're being successful, that's what you need. You need to get them on a small enough path, whatever that may be, to get them to show that they're being successful and they're doing a great job. And then they're more willing to say, oh, yeah, this is really working.
Yeah, and that's such a great point, too. And as you're saying it, I'm like, we haven't talked enough about this on the show. The fact that the shift in this money relationship, the tiny steps, the little 1%, a week or whatever, that makes all the difference. And I think that is a big stumbling block when people try to do it too much too quickly. And, that goes for almost anything. But it's certainly for something as deep rooted as these money beliefs, it's definitely the way to go. It's just tiny bits at a time.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% correct on that. The little steps, if you try to push somebody and they're not ready, it's not going to ever work. So, and if you try to take a bigger jump than they're ready for, you're just going to get pushed back. So you're completely correct on those tiny steps, and they start kind of feeling comfortable. So you take a little bit, another step, and they feel comfortable. That's what makes the difference in them changing. And all of a sudden down the road, and everyone's time frame is different. You see this light bulb go off in their head, like, I really get it. I know now. I realize what I was doing. I was never going to be successful because I was just getting in my own way. And it's like, yes, so.
Yeah. And those are the things that are truly empowering, because that confidence, that sense of, I can do this, that only comes from shifting slowly like this. That is everything. I mean, that it leads to more profitability, but it also allows, for the regular ups and downs of businesses to not throw you into, a disaster.
Yeah, they almost feel like they're more empowered. They have their confidence. They're more successful. They're in control of their life. It's those are some of the things I love to see when people get it. And it's that. And then again, the profit follows, their happiness, the financial freedom. So those are some really cool things to, like I love to see when that someone's getting it and the light bulb goes off.
Yeah, yeah, I love that too. And what kind of goals, how do you have people set goals for this? Because the other kind of myth about, I think, about profitability is that if you get the equation all correct, suddenly there's just going to be this pot of money sitting in your bank account that like you don't know what to do with, but it doesn't actually happen that way. So
No. And you know what? The other thing is, like, for instance, it's like I set goals for my company. And every year, whether it be my consulting clients or everybody in my staff, I have a meeting with them and we talk about their goals. So their financial goals and their, family goals, their health goals, all their goals and like the wheel of, life.
yeah.
They have to pick them. I can't. So some people come in, they say, I want to make 6 figures. And someone comes in and says, I want to make 25 because I'm only in my 3rd year, whatever it is. So they have to pick them and then they have to be committed to them. If I told my staff, anybody, or one of my clients, okay, your magic number for the year is, $250,000, they're going to look at me and go, okay, yeah. And they're not owning it. They're not doing anything. So I tell them, you tell me where you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. What are the goals? And then we start making action items of what we need to do and how we're going to do it to get there. And then I have my clients, they'll put it up in a wall or in their office or somewhere where they can see it every day. And they're kind of looking, I got to still work on this because it's not right. So, I tell them you've got to be able to see it every day, and every day you got to be working toward it. Small steps. Yeah. So that, there are some people I'll go in and they're like just start up company. They said, well, I want to make $1 million by the end of the year. And I'm like, okay, well, that may not happen. So what do you think would be a, tangible idea?
Yeah, I love that. And we're all encouraged to dream big and think big. And I do think, having those big, awesome goals are important. But I love what you said, because sometimes we do throw out goals that, they get you excited, but that alone is not going to do it. Like you need to actually see what's the strategy, what are these action steps, and then do the math and see is that, I don't even like to be realistic. I'd rather not be realistic, but there's a level of reality. You also don't want to leap into sort of this magical thinking that is, nearly impossible.
Yeah. And I always tell people, why would you set yourself up for failure by setting a goal is really not going to happen? Set goals where you think that you definitely feel you could get there, and let's get a plan and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have the methods and everything set up so that is a possibility, then that's great. But if you don't even offer the services at the price points that would ever get you there, then that's what you want to.
Yeah.
How do you address the pricing issue, just briefly, because that's another place where mindset comes in. Like, I don't want to charge too much. I want, everybody to be able to have my service, or the opposite. There's all kinds of mindsets around pricing, but.
Okay. Well, I learned that the hard way. So, because again, I've been in this business, I've been consulting, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm pretty I'm methodical. And like, if you do anything more than once, you need a procedure for it. So for me, that's kind of comes naturally. So I used to want to give everybody everything. And so I was talking to one of my good friends about, she was, Karen, you almost are like, what'd you call me? Speak vomit. You're saying so much, or you're vomiting so much crap out. I can't even keep up with you. So I said, okay. So I learned, like, you want to give enough, but you want them to follow through on what you give them first. So I have learned, and different, like, one thing I've learned that it depends on where your business is. If you're a startup, you need one thing. If you're a mid-size, you need another thing. If you're already hitting the $1 million mark, or your next goal is 5 mil, then you need totally something else. So my pricing ranges on a couple of things: the size of where you are now, what you're doing now. Now, if I go into a business and they're already $250,000 in the hole, I've got to, in my mind, I immediately think I need to get this out of the hole and making profit as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And then I need to also pay for myself within their profitability. So I look at that, and there are other businesses that have a bigger profit margin, so they could probably charge more. And I mean, at one point, I have a coach too who coaches me on this because for this reason. So there's a couple of things I really look at. I want to be affordable and I want to really help. But then again, on the other hand, I don't take anyone for a client. Like, I need to know, if I'm spending my time with you, you have to do the work. If you're not doing the work, then I can tell you anything I want, and it's not going to help. And I want to help the people who really want it. That's what motivates me and makes me thrive.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such great advice. And I agree with you. You can give the best advice and you can hold somebody's hand, but if they're not, there is work to do on their end. And if it's definitely a combined effort, and most of it falls on them. I mean, so yeah, very, very good. And it is good just to look at how you think about pricing, because I do think people, they're doing this to make people feel good and be happy. And just like you felt when you were a little girl, and, you want to do that for other people. And, but if you sacrifice your own profitability or paying yourself or whatever that is, then you can only go so far with that. There's so many important reasons to be profitable. I mean, immediately we think, I can pay myself out of the business. I can actually, grow some wealth outside of the business. But on top of that, you talked about a 1 year to 10-year plan. That 10-year plan might include selling the business, might include franchising, might include all kinds of fun growth ideas. And you would have to prove profitability to do any of it.
Yes. Yep. So, I've had the clients who say, I'm in it, I've been in it, I want to be out in 5 years. I need an exit plan. I want to make sure I'm as profitable as possible right now, so that I can show healthy, really good profitability, the P&L, the balance sheets. Generally, when they know they're going to do that, we start talking about, a manual for every different department and everything like that. So yeah, I actually had a client, that was their plan, 5 years out. And they ended up selling their salon. It was mostly a salon, small spa, for over $2 million, because it was almost like a turnkey. Someone could come in and they were going to stay on like 3 months to, iron everything out, do stuff. But like, here's the manual for this. It was detailed to detailed, everything. They're, even on branding notes, how they have expanded their marketing calendar. So, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I love that. And I think, that there is some end goal with any business that you start like that. You may not think about it very much. I think people do get very caught up in the day-to-day. And so it's hard to take the time, which is also a great reason to hire somebody like you, because you kind of force people to look at these things that they may not make the time to do.
And what you just said is another huge problem in any business. You're so busy, looking at the emails, answering the phones, doing the day-to-day things, that people forget, like, you have to work on the business, not always in the business. And so when I go in, I talk to whoever, it's the husband or wife, the partners, I talk to them and like, what are your duties? What are your responsibilities? And generally, most people are working in the business and not so much on the business. So it's like, okay, do you need a bookkeeper? Do you need an accountant? Do you need somebody who can actually run a business with a proven track to help you move forward.
So you have what my coach would call a team-led business, really, where the team can handle everything except maybe the strategic, visioning and implementation ideas and things that you're doing, which is when it really, I think, feels amazing. Not that you don't still love doing some of, the actual technical things, but it is, that's a real milestone for success.
Yeah, it was a little weird at first because I'm thinking, well, I'll get everything done in 2 or 3 days. And then I realized there's a lot more to be doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. And people can't see that when they're in the weeds. It's like, well, what would I do if I wasn't, doing my salon things? But there's a lot to do, as you said, and that grows too. Once you start working on the business, you realize all the ways that you can work on the business. But initially, if you haven't been doing that, that's a bit of a mystery as well. So again, the reason for a coach. Wow. Okay. I love this conversation. This has been so interesting and I think really helpful. I think it, as much as the word profitability and words like scaling get thrown around, they're just words to people. I don't think, people actually know how specifically what they mean or how to tackle those particular things. So I think this is really good, and I think the gold really is in the details and in the specifics about it. So thank you for sharing so many of those. That was a success story you shared. My next question was to share a success story. Any others that you want to just throw out there?
Yeah. I mean, here's one. I had a client who was in California, and she kept talking about opening another location, and I'm like, your first location still has a long ways to go. And I said, and she knew that in her heart of hearts. And so she said, yeah, but I think I'd like another one in this, Orange County. And, it's a great place to be. There's a lot of Hollywood stars there. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. And so finally I said, okay, can we just put it on the back burner so we can get your, this place running at 100%, have a cancellation list, so you're always booked. Okay. I went away for 2 weeks. I came back, and I go, Lisa, what's new? She goes, please don't kill me. I'm like, oh my God, I know what you did. And she goes, I just wanted it so bad. And I'm like, okay. I go, now you're really going to have to work double time. So she had a very, because I showed, long story short, she was taking people from one place and bringing them over to the other place. I said, so now you just have twice as many expenses with the same amount of people. And so we ended up having to come up with, she ended up having an academy where she was teaching that, and that way she could train out of both locations. But we had to come up with stuff fairly quickly, because I showed her the projections. I said, Lisa, your projections in 5 months, you'll be out of money for both places. And she's like, I didn't know it'd be that quick. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So thankfully she then listened, and we got it to where she needed it to be for both places. But she said, I didn't think it would be that hard. I thought I'd just hire a few more people and I would have been good. And I said, no, it's never that easy.
Yeah, but that's a great story. Yeah, it's a lot to learn in there, and good for her for making it, but good for you for helping guide her to that place. I love that you put the projection out there so you see exactly how much time you have. A lot of times we're not estimating that very well. So
yeah, that's the one good thing. If you're not an accountant or anything, you should definitely get one, or someone to be a bookkeeper so you can give it to an accountant. There's even a cheaper way of doing it. But and then you can make really good financial decisions, and and when you kind of talk to people like, okay, at the rate you're going, you're going to have to close doors, or you're going to be in the red, and there's no turning back. They start really panicking when you kind of give it to them, so they know now's the time I have to make some real hard decisions and do stuff.
Yeah, that's great. And even with a more positive view, I mean, you show them when they'll finally be able to take a salary out. Maybe they're not going to go under, but some of these goals that they have won't be met for, maybe they think in a couple of months they'll be pulling a salary and really it's like 2 years. So, it's good.
Yep.
Yeah. I love this. Okay. I want to give you a minute to talk about your next venture, your clothing line, which we didn't get to, but, and what prompted that?
Well, before that, I want to back up to my book, Rags to Riches, because what I did is I wrote the book so that I could give as much information in the book. And there's also about 12 huge people who were humble beginnings and have made it huge. Like they're all celebrity. They have stars and celebrities who are their clientele, like Madonna and Oprah, and the list goes on. And they were really phenomenal and shared their beginnings, their struggles. And then there's an assessment and it goes into teaching. But I did, at one point, my coach said, Karen, this book can't be 300 pages. And I'm like, yeah, but I just want to put everything into it. And so she goes, no. She says, make a course. So I made a course. And it's called Rags to Riches in Action. And it really breaks down every single chapter. And it gives like everything I've done personally that works, all my consulting clients. So it's a really how to do things. And it's a type of course that once you get through it once and you bring your business to the next level, wherever you are, you can go through it again because then it keeps adding on layers to bring your profitability even higher. So that was my big baby, so I can help as many people as possible. So that is my big thing. So yes, I have my clothing line, Be a Badass. And the next thing I want to do is my younger daughter who has ADHD and wants to do a podcast with me for kids her age. She's 12. And people, they'll say, oh, I have it, but they don't really talk about it. And my daughter goes to a counselor who gives her ways of, fidgeting, thinking, letting things go. And so she would like to talk to people of her age and her struggles, what has helped her, what doesn't help. If I say, go put your laundry away, and all of a sudden she's like in the kitchen eating something with her laundry sitting there, I'm like, what happened? She goes, oh, I got distracted. Or, Mom, you can only tell me 3 things to do at once because then anymore I forget all of them. So just little things, but to kind of keep it humorous, fun. People with ADHD become very sensitive. So she takes things very seriously and sensitive. And so I think that's something she wants to talk about a little bit. So that's our next thing.
I love that on so many levels. I don't have time to get into too many of them. I could see my daughter getting so much out of that because at that age, that gives you can learn some things before you get into middle school and high school and all the drama there. So I think that is amazing. How wonderful that she wants to do that.
Yeah.
The world at 12.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a little good. So I think it would be good for her to have like a peer group that, this is what's going on with me and I want to ever have this, or, what do you suggest? What are your thoughts and stuff like that?
Well, let me know when that starts. So
okay.
People know. That is amazing. So yeah, you're busy. And I think it's so great. I mean, mother and daughter podcast sounds amazing to me too. That's so great. You can, your first line in your bio is that you're a mom person, and that is very clear. So, and I love that. Okay, well, unfortunately, we kind of have to wrap up. I will put information about Rags to Riches in the show notes, and audience, please, is that for, I'm assuming that would help any business, not just beauty business?
Oh, yes. It would help any business, and it's the basics and the true functions of a business to start up to growing it. So I have other people who I've consulted for who aren't in the beauty industry at all and stuff like that. And I've given the book to them to read and stuff. So yeah, it's for any business. It covers all of the basic functions that a business needs to grow.
I love that. And I'll tell you, more and more I'm realizing, get all those basics in place and then do these big things that are really the exciting things that you're thinking about doing right now. Because I think people leap over a lot of the basics, and that's a big problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. And this has been great. I've loved talking to you, and you shared a lot of amazing wisdom with our audience. I'm sure everybody listening is going to really appreciate this. And thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, you're so welcome. This has been a great show. So, audience, thank you for being here. And I hope you will follow, share the Money and You show with your friends. We're here to help you really learn as much as we can teach about money, and in a variety of different formats and with a variety of different topics. So please tune in every week. We're here broadcasting from ubngo.com on a weekly basis, and we would love for you to learn and have these conversations right along with us. So thanks so much. We'll see you next week.